South America rarely comes to mind when talking about mega projects, but these days, Brazil is impossible to ignore, as it's launched a determined push to expand one of its major ports. Naturally, the ambitious plan won't go through without the seabed losing millions of cubic feet of soil, and in fact, the process is already in motion. 353,000 cubic feet of material have already been removed from their original location. Besides that, the existing terminals and port infrastructure will be upgraded, which altogether will double the port's capacity. What's more, since we're basically talking about a port mega project, the Brazilians came up with the idea of building an entirely new, large-scale port infrastructure and new terminals. And of course, it wouldn't be a real mega project without a classic feature, a tunnel. The Brazilians decided to put it right under the canal to revolutionize logistics at the modernized port. You know what's really surprising? A big part of all this is actually being funded by China. And one of the reasons the Chinese are working on modernizing the port in Brazil is the worsening situation with agriculture in the US. So yeah, this is definitely something worth digging into, which is exactly what we're about to do. We all know that China's long been developing at breakneck speed, which requires an enormous amount of resources: metals, oil, gas, and everything else that keeps the country's industry running. However, at the same time, the country has a huge demand for farm products. Surprisingly, for a while, that demand was met almost entirely by the U.S. For example, in 2012, the U.S. imported $25.9 billion worth of farm products to China. The key product was soybeans, which China uses both as animal feed and as food for people in the form of soybean oil, soy milk, tofu, and soy sauce. That same year, more than 27 million tons of these resources were shipped by sea from the U.S. to China. On top of that, quite a lot of corn, sorghum, and cotton made their way from North America to Asia. In 2017, total U.S. agricultural exports to China amounted to $19.6 billion. At the same time, soybean shipments to China were much larger, 32.9 million tons, and sorghum, for example, about 4.8 million tons. In fact, 2017 turned out to be the last year when China was buying U.S. farm products so actively, because after that, the trade wars began. In 2018 to 2020, two countries that had long been rivals slapped restrictions, duties, and tariffs on each other. In response to American actions, China hit back with tariffs on U.S. farm goods, especially soybeans, which meant far fewer of these vital resources were shipped across the ocean. And naturally, China had to look for a partner who could cover its needs sufficiently and one who wouldn't drag it into future trade wars. Apparently, it was enough to look at the top soybean producers, where Brazil ranked first right ahead of the U.S. in 2019 and 2020. At the same time, there were no issues with other agricultural products from that country either. Already a perfect fit. But there was an even more important fact: Brazil had the port of Santos, which was perfectly suited to meet China's agricultural needs. Santos is located in the city of the same name in Sao Paulo state. Just imagine, the site covers more than 100 million square feet. Its pier front stretches for about 7 miles, and some sources even say as much as 11 miles, which allows it to accommodate a massive number of ships all at once. The port also includes 58 terminals and 62 berths that can handle dry and liquid bulk cargo, containers, and other types of goods. Thanks to all this, the port is rightly called the biggest maritime gateway of Latin America. In 2023 alone, the port's cargo turnover reached 173 million tons, and container traffic amounted to 5 million TEUs, or 20-foot containers. Much of this title was earned thanks to exports of agricultural products to China, which jumped significantly with the start of the trade wars. In 2017, 53 million tons of soybeans left Brazil for China, and by 2018 it was already 68 million tons. In 2020 to 2021, Brazil had firmly established itself as the main supplier. Over 70% of China's soybean imports came from this South American country. The same thing happened with other agricultural products, though in smaller volumes. And it's worth noting that it's through the port of Santos that all these resources, so valuable for China, have been shipped, are being shipped right now, and will continue to be shipped. Moreover, in even larger volumes, because China isn't standing still. And here's where the problem comes in. Because while Santos is equipped to handle large shipments of agricultural goods to China and other countries, it might not be able to keep up if volumes keep increasing. First of all, the port infrastructure is strained. For example, grain terminals are working almost at full capacity. Their load reaches 91%. At the same time, loading time in February 2025 was 17.5 days, whereas a year earlier it didn't exceed 10.5 days. Also in 2025, terminal usage in general went above the safe operating threshold of 65%. They were running at more than 75 to 90%. It's also worth noting that in 2024, only 23% of container sailings left on time, while the rest faced delays or cancellations. That same year, the average waiting time for a ship to berth reached 50 hours. Another pressing issue is the depth of the fairway in the navigation channel. It reaches 49 feet, and that sounds like quite a lot because ships like Panamax vessels can pass through carrying from 60 to 80,000 tons with a draft of up to 39 feet. However, the most efficient ships right now, both for China-Brazil trade and global trade overall, are Neo-Panamax vessels with a capacity of over 120,000 tons and a draft of more than 49 feet. Such ships can enter Santos only if they're not fully loaded. Otherwise, they'd simply run aground because the channel isn't deep enough. On top of that, the port has just 3 lanes, 2 for entering and 1 for leaving, which is obviously not enough since the number of trucks is already forecast to soar by 145% from 12,000 to 29,000 per day. In short, both Brazil and China need the port to be modernized, so the two countries came up with a plan to do it together, to turn the port of Santos into a facility capable of handling all the tasks that trade between Brazil and China throws at it. How's China involved in the modernization project? Of course, by providing funding. There's a fund set up by China and Brazil with a total capital of $20 billion. Out of that, $15 billion goes to the Sino Latin American Clay Fund and another $5 billion to the Brazilian Development Bank. There aren't exact figures, but it's known that some of the money is being used for projects, in particular the modernization of the Port of Santos. The very first and most important thing on the agenda is large-scale and very expensive projects to deepen and widen the water area and the navigation channel, which is critically important for both Brazil and China. The first stage includes bringing the navigation channel depth to 52 feet by 2026, and ultimately by 2031, the goal is to reach a depth of 56 feet. At the moment, a tender has been announced to remove rock formations that prevent the depth from being increased. Preliminary calculations suggest that roughly 353,000 cubic feet must be extracted from 31 points in the water area. Back in August 2024, work on deepening individual piers was already finished, during which about 3,531,000 cubic feet of sediment were dredged. There's a problem. The channel and the whole water area can gradually get clogged with silt. It just happens that the water brings it to the shores with the currents, and the same thing happens near the Port of Santos. That's why dredging isn't a one-time deal, but an ongoing targeted effort for which specialized ships arrive in the port's waters at regular intervals. As things stand now, keeping a depth of 49 feet requires raising about 152 million cubic feet of sediment every year. Let's just say there's already a lot of work. But once the additional dredging as part of the modernization is done, the vessels in charge of maintaining the depth will have even more work ahead. According to experts, when the depth is increased to 52 feet, about 236 million cubic feet of material will have to be removed each year. And when the final goal of 56 feet is reached, around 279 million cubic feet will need to be cleared annually. Also, as part of the massive plan to modernize the Port of Santos, there's the construction of a powerful, state-of-the-art agro terminal, STS-11, carried out by the Chinese company COFCO for $285 million. By the way, for COFCO, this new terminal in Brazil will be the biggest ever outside China. The terminal's throughput is expected to reach 14 million tons of cargo per year. At the same time, it's worth noting that even the first phase of construction, which is forecasted to finish in 2025, will provide a capacity of 8 million tons, and in 2026, as planned, the huge target capacity of 14 million tons will be achieved. The infrastructure of the new agro terminal will include advanced equipment and technologies. First of all, this applies to the construction of new warehouses, which will be used for the temporary storage of large amounts of grain. These facilities are designed to minimize losses and keep the product safe. In addition, the railway infrastructure will be upgraded and expanded. The project includes building new railway lines that will be able to handle long trains with up to 120 cars. These trains will be equipped with powerful systems capable of processing cargo at a rate of up to 1,500 tons per hour, which will significantly cut unloading time and boost overall efficiency. Besides that, the project includes a full overhaul of the piers and the installation of modern lock systems. This will allow several ships to be handled at the same time and speed up the loading process. The upgrade also involves taking down old, inefficient structures to make room for more modern equipment and optimized space usage. In this way, COFCO's new agro terminal is a comprehensive solution that will not only increase the port's capacity for handling agricultural products, but also make the whole process more high-tech, fast, and efficient. Besides that, as part of the Santos port upgrade, they plan to expand the two biggest existing terminals. At the Take On Santos terminal, they're carrying out a major expansion to boost capacity from the current 2.4 million TEU to 3 million TEU by 2026. Overall, the project is valued at $477 million. A big chunk of that money's already been invested, $238.5 million, including $77 million in 2024 alone. The investments are going into expanding the quay and buying new equipment. As part of the project, new quay cranes will be installed, which will allow ships to be handled faster and more efficiently. Another major player in the port, Brasil Terminal Portuário, or BTP, is also making significant investments aimed at long-term development. The total investment amounts to nearly $350 million, which will be spent by 2047. The main goal is not only to increase throughput, but also to raise the technological level of operations. The BTP infrastructure will see a major upgrade. 4 new cranes are planned, which are more energy efficient and eco-friendly. Automation is a key focus. Automated gates will be installed to speed up truck entry and exit, and new service vehicles will help optimize internal container movements. In addition, the refrigerated container warehouse will be expanded, which is crucial for exporting perishable goods. The project also involves reinforcing the piers so they can support new equipment and larger vessels. These investments will help BTP solidify its position in the market and keep up with the rising demand for container shipping. All in all, the expansion efforts at both terminals show that Santos Port is preparing for the future by investing in capacity growth and tech modernization. Another terminal that will undergo modernization is the sugar and grain site. The amount of money to be invested isn't too far off from what's allocated to other port infrastructure. By 2028, the amount should reach around $103 million. The terminal upgrade involves building new infrastructure and introducing advanced technologies, in particular a new warehouse with a capacity of 100,000 tons for storing sugar and grain will be built, which will streamline logistics operations and ensure smooth work. To speed up loading and unloading, new conveyor systems with low dust emission will be installed, which also ensures compliance with environmental regulations. An important part of the project is building a new ship loader that can handle modern large tonnage vessels. In addition, the project will include a new headquarters and a power substation, which will improve the terminal's operational efficiency and energy reliability. In total, all the upgrades will boost the terminal's capacity from the current 15 million to 19 million tons a year. It's another step toward cutting downtime and keeping up with growing Chinese agricultural demands. Of course, besides all this, there are plans to upgrade the technology at the Port of Santos, which will also increase its efficiency and allow it to handle existing challenges. One of the key projects in this area is the introduction of the Vessel Traffic Management Information System, or VTMIS. This system uses an integrated network of cameras, sensors, and drones to track the movement of all vessels in the port area in real time. VTMIS provides full control and monitoring, which helps improve navigation safety, prevent incidents, and efficiently tackle illegal activities like smuggling. Another key project is the development of a digital twin of the port. This is a virtual model that represents all physical processes happening at Santos in real time. The digital twin lets you simulate operations, predict different scenarios, and optimize cargo flows. Using this technology, similar to that in ports like Rotterdam and Houston, will help cut ship processing time by 15 to 20%. Besides that, the port improves logistics management systems. This includes optimizing surrounding roads, implementing smart transport systems to control truck traffic, and building bigger parking areas. These measures aim to cut congestion, speed up cargo delivery, and boost overall efficiency. All these digital products together create a unified, interconnected system, making Santos Port not just bigger, but also smarter. And finally, as you might remember, there were some issues with getting into Santos Port as well as leaving it. There just weren't many exits, which created certain logistical problems. Of course, they decided to fix this too. How? First of all, with a huge and ambitious project to build the Santos Guarujá underwater tunnel, which is estimated at nearly $950 million. The cost makes perfect sense. The plan is to build a path under the bay, which means doing some complicated digging work, bringing in specialized equipment, then they'll have to deliver and put in place massive blocks on the bottom, which are meant to turn into a new road. So basically, there's clearly a lot of work ahead. The tunnel will serve to connect the two shores of the bay directly, significantly improving access to the port and relieving the surface road network. The project's 70-year concession period underscores its long-term value for regional mobility and logistics. Meanwhile, it's already obvious that this new route will be a crucial artery, enabling quicker, smoother transport of goods and cutting down on congestion and delays. Another key part of transport integration is relocating the Conques passenger terminal. The terminal will be transferred to Valongo, near the city's historic core, at an estimated cost of $250 million. For the port itself, this will free up space for cargo operations, allowing even more agricultural products to be shipped to China. Basically, you get the idea. China is investing quite a lot of money in a Brazilian port, so what will they actually get once all the upgrades are done? Above all, enhancing Santos's infrastructure, including channel deepening and new agro terminal construction, directly helps China's goal of securing its food supply. It provides reliable, continuous access to massive volumes of Brazilian grains and other crops for years to come, further cutting reliance on the U.S., with which China's already locked in endless trade wars. It's worth noting that this could have been achieved even if China hadn't invested any money and Brazil had developed its port on its own. China invests large amounts, and that means this South American country is effectively coming under even more influence from its Asian trade partner. At the very least, this means that even in the future, under pressure from the U.S., Brazil won't cut its agricultural exports to China. At most, the Chinese could use Brazil to make the U.S. role weaker in trade relations. Many experts only think about that. But for China, the priority is to meet its own agricultural needs. And it should be said that an even greater reduction in reliance on the U.S. basically shows that China, by investing in Santos Port, is causing American farmers to lose even more money as they'll be shipping even less of their produce to Chinese ports. At the moment, Brazil is already the leader in growing soybeans ahead of the U.S. This means that with increased port capacity for shipping agricultural goods, Brazil, through the port of Santos, will be able to take away more markets from the U.S., not just China. By the way, this will be beneficial not only for Brazil, which obviously will earn more money from exporting its products, but also for China, since in that case, its main geopolitical rival will lose money. Modernization means improving not just the shipment of agricultural goods, but also boosting the capacity to handle containers and other types of cargo. Overall, modernizing Santos is about increasing trade between Brazil and China in general. For example, talking about containers, in 2024, Santos handled 5.4 million TEU, and if all the upgrades go as planned, another 5 million TEU will be added. Even if only part of the plans is carried out, experts say the increase will be between 1.9 and 2.5 million TEU per year. This will make it a lot easier to move goods both from China to Brazil and the other way around. As a result, both countries will get money and the resources they need. Everyone's happy. Brazil doesn't trade only with China, so expanding the capacity of its main port will help the country increase its overall trade potential. Upgrading the container infrastructure, including automation and new cranes, will make it easier to export high-tech and industrial goods, as well as machinery and automotive products. Expanding the refrigerated container storage will open up new markets for exporting perishable goods like meat and fruit to countries that were previously logistically out of reach. In this way, modernization makes the port a universal hub, capable of managing various types of cargo and linking Brazil with new global markets. The massive modernization of Santos ports also acting as a catalyst for new job opportunities and a big improvement in Brazil's economy. These changes affect both the construction industry and the logistics and service sectors. During the project phase, which includes deepening the harbor, building new terminals, and developing railway infrastructure, thousands of temporary jobs are created for engineers, construction workers, and other skilled staff. These workers are busy putting up new structures, laying down railway lines, and setting up modern machinery such as port and quay cranes. Once the construction's completed, the primary job growth will be in long-term employment, the expansion of container and agro terminals, along with the introduction of digital technologies, calls for hiring and training new employees. The port will need complex equipment operators, IT experts to handle systems such as the digital twin, engineers for automated system maintenance, plus managers and administrative staff. Moreover, the modernization also boosts other parts of the economy, moving the passenger terminal and creating new recreational areas, fuel growth in the tourism and service sectors. New job opportunities will emerge in hotels, public catering, and retail trade. This is how the projects at Santos Port generate a broad economic impact that reaches far beyond the port area. They not only reduce unemployment, but also improve workforce skills, supporting Brazil's long-term and sustainable economic growth.